I'm sure we'd all agree that London's taxi drivers are the best in the world, and they're a taxi fleet to be proud of,
Not sure.
with a 350-year history, and they serve Londoners so well. All taxis are wheelchair accessible, and that's something that you can't say about any other mode of transport or any other or many other taxi fleets in the world. And yet, like never before, our taxi drivers are feeling under threat, and they are under threat if you look at the numbers concerning the taxi fleet and the numbers of taxi drivers. In April 2016, I've got these figures from the TfL site just yesterday, there were about 22,000 taxis in London. But today, there's just over 19,000. So the number of taxis has gone down by well over 2,500 in just 3 years since the current mayor took office. And similarly, the number of taxi drivers has gone down from 25,000 to 23,000. 2,000 drop in the number of taxi drivers driving our taxis around London. That's for a variety of reasons. But the mayor has put in place a number of policies and a number of changes concerning the taxi trade in London. Some of those are positive. He talks often about taxi drivers being able to use more bus lanes, and that's true, particularly in outer London, maybe not so much in central London. Taxi drivers now take credit and debit cards, and they've accepted that. There's the zero emission capable taxi since the beginning of last year. Taxi drivers and organisations have accepted that as well. But there's a couple of things that the mayor has done this year, and announcements he's made, and changes to the regulations and the conditions that taxi drivers will have to operate under, which I know the organisations are very, very unhappy about, and I know will cause some harm to the taxi drivers. And one of those things is that he wants to reduce the maximum age of a taxi licence from 15 years to 12 years. But that will take another 6,000 taxis out of London's fleet. There's approximately a 1,500 rollover every year. About 1,500 taxis get to the maximum age, 15 years, and then they're retired, those vehicles are retired, and taxi drivers then purchase a new vehicle. But by reducing the maximum age from 15 to 12 years, that will take about 4,500 taxis out of the fleet straight away. And he's also introducing something called maximum age mandating. What that means is essentially, at the moment, a taxi which is 14 years and 364 days can still apply for a year's license. So actually, effectively, the maximum age for a taxi at the moment is not 15 years. It's 15 years and 364 days. By introducing maximum age mandating, what that means is a taxi will no longer be able to apply for a license unless they have a full year left until the 15 years. So instead of it being 14 years and 364 days, that will go down to 14 years and 0 days. And by taking another 3 years off the maximum age, a taxi will not be able to apply for a license until over 11 years, so that it finishes on 12 years. So 6,000 extra taxis will be lost from the fleet. Taxi drivers are struggling to have vehicles to purchase, and particularly those who operate and drive around in taxis that are rented out by some of the taxi fleets. Is something that's little known, that we assume that all of the taxi drivers own their own taxis. But that's not actually true. Yeah, perhaps about half of them do, but half of them rent taxis weekly or monthly from large fleet owners, they pay £200 to £300 a week to rent a taxi, and then they drive those around. Now those taxi fleets are struggling to purchase taxis.
Your last sentence.
Because the number of taxis in the fleet has gone down. I hope you will consider this and consider how hard it's going to be for taxi drivers if these changes come into place, which is why I've introduced this motion.
We support Assemblymember Kurten's motion. First of all, I would actually like to say that, first of all, not only does he display an extraordinary detailed knowledge of the whole business, he's been absolutely relentless in his championing of the taxi industry in this town. And for that, I think he should be commended. I think that all the points he made absolutely stand. I use cabs every day in London. I make sure that I do, actually. And the fact is that they feel entirely beleaguered, as of course they would. What they also say is that whenever there's an election here, or when we have a new mayor, they always suck up to the taxi drivers during the campaign, and then they pretty much abandon them. What maybe they don't necessarily think is going to happen is that they will be sort of attacked subliminally, or at least sort of chipped away at. The industry will be chipped away at from below. And we really are in danger, therefore, of consigning to history one of our great industries, businesses in this city. And also, I would say that if you were building a new city from scratch now, the black cab trade is one that you would actually have, for all the reasons that my colleague has already pointed out. So I do urge you to send a message of support to them as well, and to support this motion.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, thank you for all your comments. It's been a very interesting debate. Just respond to Assemblymember Duval. Thank you for your speech as well. And I'm not trying to dump on the Mayor. As I said in my opening speech, I do acknowledge that he's made some changes which have been of benefit to taxi drivers, but on these two specific issues, which the motion is about, I know there's a serious amount of concern in the trade, because it's going to affect the livelihoods of drivers, and not just them, of course their families and children will be affected. You know, when we deal with Crossrail 2, the OPDC and so on, they make a business plan which they have to set out before a policy is enacted, and if that business plan is not viable, then those projects can't go ahead. Similarly with taxi drivers, they're putting together a lifetime business plan when they become a taxi driver. It's a very, very expensive business to do the knowledge, to purchase a taxi up front, and they put in a lot of money in the first 5-10 years and hope to recoup that over a lifetime of driving taxis around on London's roads. And if there's a change which is unexpected, that can completely scupper their whole lifetime business plan. And that, I think, is what many of the taxi drivers are feeling at the moment. So this motion is trying to look at things from their point of view. And you know, I thank you for your commitment to abstain, your position of abstaining. I know you do have concerns about air quality and so on, but I hope Assemblymember Prince has addressed some of them by what he said about the Mercedes veto. It is recognised as being able to drive in the ULEZ because it's a Euro 6 diesel. And there are many, many private hire vehicles which are Euro 6 diesel as well, many, many more than would be registered every year in the taxi fleet. And the Via vans, which are on trial, are also Euro 6 diesel. So those do comply with the Mayor's new ULEZ. So hopefully that's come some way to assuage your concerns on that issue.
So I'm afraid I won't be supporting this motion today.
The Green Group will not be supporting this motion.